I'm going to wager here, right here and right now, that $1 million that we find out, anyone willing to challenge it, we will find out in due course that Mossad was behind this and they killed Charlie Kirk, and then
news, current affairs, facts and opinion, their future in our hands. Markets, globalist technocrats versus the people. A line in the sand. The McIntyre Report.
Well, welcome folks to the McIntyre Report. Jeremy McIntyre reporting live for Australia National Review, ANR.news. You can follow our 24-hour news headline. Sadly, the news has come in. Many have already heard that Charlie Kirk was shot and killed today in Utah rally in America. Those who don't know Charlie Kirk, he was a political commentator. Many people respected him, although we may disagree with some of his views at times. He was clearly a very good Christian boy and doing the work he deeply believed in. Now, as more things come in about the killing and who was behind it, I will say up front, first of all, condolences to Charlie's family. I mean, this is a horrible thing to happen, and we'll see footage of it in a moment, so I must warn you, it is graphic. But the question we must raise after we look at this is, who's behind this? What's the typical playbook? And I'm willing to put $1 million wager right here, right now, that we'll find out who it was, and it's very predictable.
That Epstein, with his little friend Ghislaine and Ghislaine's father, Robert Maxwell, who was obviously a spy of the Israeli intelligence agencies, but there was something else going on here. Epstein was not some sort of whiz-kid hedge fund manager. Epstein was playing a part. Epstein was a LARPer. Epstein was cast for a specific role, and he played it really well. The sweatpants and the Harvard jacket, the kind of disheveled hair, looking as if he was so smart and above the clouds that he was doing advanced mathematic equations on the back of napkins. But if you actually go into some of the videos of people that met with Epstein at the time, they said he was awfully unimpressive when it came to finance and markets and economics. And it's nothing new that if you're in the intel agencies, you want to try and get as much blackmail on powerful people as possible. Easy, not hard. And this is no longer just speculation. First of all, the evidence that shows that Epstein was a creation of either Mossad, Israeli intelligence, American intelligence, Saudi intelligence, or maybe he was just a hired gun. Maybe he was just the guy that countries would go to and park a couple $100 million and say, hey, can you get one of the members of the royal family with a 13-year-old so we can get them to do what we want to do? Members of Congress are actively being blackmailed. The Epstein playbook is being used on a daily basis. Jeffrey Epstein was not a financier. He was not a hedge fund manager. Jeffrey Epstein was a key player in a multi-decade blackmail operation against the most powerful people on the planet.
Some might raise Charlie Kirk there talking about the Epstein files, and Charlie was pro-Israel for much of his life, but in recent times, much of his fan and supporter base, like most people in the world, have united against Israel for the genocide in Gaza and their lies and propaganda. So he started to speak out a little bit and recognize that maybe Israel's not perfect. But is that why he's been assassinated? Because he was starting to speak out about Israel? Or is it because Israel wants to martyr him, blame the lefties for assassinating him, and make him a martyr and have sympathy for Israel? We should stand with Judeo-Christians, and Charlie was obviously a Christian, but believed in Israel because he believed in biblical Israel, not realizing the fake state created by a bunch of banker wankers, namely the Rothschilds banking family in 1948, 77 years ago, is hardly biblical, and I'm pretty sure God did not choose them to represent him. But here's what happened.
Let me give you some credit. Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years?
Counting or not counting gang violence?
Great.
absolutely shocking there. Footage of that, and even
Not counting gang violence.
Great.
So, as I warned, that is graphic, and you may not necessarily want to watch that, but this is what's happened, and I'm going to suggest to you, well, let's look at some of the things that are coming out. Who was really behind this? This was not just some random nutcase. This is a professional shooter. How do we know that? Well, we already know this.
Right up.
Yeah. You think he'd already be in place?
You would think that. So there's somebody on the roof right there? Just saying.
Huh.
He just ran from over, where's my finger? Well, from over there, ran in, and now he's right there. Just saying. Just.
So there's footage beforehand, once again, just like the Trump attack, people on the roof and people spotting it on the roof. Where's law enforcement? Where's security to do something about it? Nothing's done about it. Of course, if it's an inside job or Mossad job, of course nothing be done about it. But it's clearly a professional shooter. It's not just some random person snuck a gun in and doesn't like Charlie Kirk and popped him off. That's pretty obvious. When something like happens like this, we're told it's just some random thing. But Charlie Kirk, a political commentator, becoming outspoken about Israel, is it just a random act or a deliberate, provocative act by a desperate, dying regime? I'm going to wager here and right now, that $1 million that we find out, anyone willing to challenge it, we will find out in due course that Mossad was behind this and they killed Charlie Kirk. And then the hide of the Israeli prime minister, this is what he had to say. Charlie Kirk was murdered for speaking truth and defending freedom. A lion-hearted friend of Israel, he fought the lies and stood tall for Judeo-Christian civilization. I spoke to him only 2 weeks ago and invited him to Israel. Sadly, that visit will not take place. We lost an incredible human being. His boundless pride in America and his valiant belief in free speech will leave a lasting impact. Rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. Well, Benjamin Netanyahu, you are one of the worst people on this planet. I don't think you have any values. And your Mossad, who you control and wage war on people, is likely the most probable suspect in coordinating the death of Charlie Kirk. And then you want to speak kind words about him while your intelligence agency wiped him off the planet. Now, I'm not saying we don't have proof of that yet. I'm saying that's what I predict will come out. My prediction is that we will find out that this was pre-planned and done by Mossad to martyr Charlie Kirk and to get sympathy for Israel. Why? Because Israel is deeply desperate right now. As the tide is turning, including people like Charlie Kirk, we're even starting to turn and go and question Israel. Question their genocide. Question them bombing Doha and bombing every nation around it, wanting to create a one-world government based on war and terror, where then the opposing BRICS nations led by Russia and China, where China doesn't have 750 military bases like Israel does via their de facto colony in America, 750 military bases. China has zero, but it's able to create influence in the world because it invests in countries, builds roads and infrastructure, and helps communities. Where what's Israel want to do? Israel wants to take over the world by theft, murder, rape, genocide, terrorism, and they won't stop at killing one of their own. Poor Charlie, speaking up, perfect target to blame the lefties, blame the Democrats, the left and right paradigm, because that's what you have in the West. You don't have democracy. You have a left, and whenever you live in a country that has this left and the right, it's controlled by Israel to have you go back and forth, divide you. And this will be done to divide. But let's look at it. Let's look at some of the evidence already coming.
Makes them dangerous because they've been brainwashed to believe that.
We just showed some video that Alex Jones posted. Charlie Kirk's assassin can be seen on the roof of the Utah Valley University running away after the shooting. There, when you go back to it, you can see him running from the left up top. And then it's going to cut to a vertical video of a guy prone on the roof. You see him up there. See the little lump?
There he is.
The bump. Yeah. And so set up, ready to go. And I mean, is it possible that, the same thing was happening with Trump? Look, they're pointing him out.
Yeah, no security is paying attention to that. There's no one on the rooftop.
How does this happen? How do we see things like this? How do people go up to law enforcement at Trump's rallies? Hey, there's a guy up on the roof. There's a guy up on the roof. And they're like, oh, I don't know what to do.
I want to see the interviews from the witnesses who were saying, we saw this.
Yeah, it's appalling. So we already have the evidence that it's a professional sniper. who's behind it. Well, who's behind most terrorist actions in the world? You got to look at, when you're looking at murder investigation, who has motive, who has capability. Some might have motive, but zero capability. Who has a pattern of past behavior, and who stands to benefit the most. So the prime suspects right up front in any investigation of shootings or terrorist attacks, false flag attacks in America and starting wars would have to be, we guessed it, that fake state created in 1948 that's claiming to be biblical and God chose them. So we don't know that yet, but more will come out, and you watch what they do. They will try and frame it to blame someone else, but to stir up this division in society and to garner sympathy for Israel. Because most of his life, Charlie Kirk was pro-Israel, although he did speak out about the Epstein files eventually and was starting to realize as his supporter base was leaving him in droves, because most people are waking up that Israel is the enemy of humanity. And it's a fake state. It's not biblical. It's not chosen by God. It's just pure evil, led by Netanyahu. And the question we should all have is, who does Netanyahu answer to? We know a lot of people answer to him, but who does he answer to? Let's get straight to the source of the problem and go after these people, expose them. And the best way we can defeat the world right now, BRICS, is taking over. China and Russia and Iran and the BRIC nations is taking over as the dominant power. America had his chance. Trump promised MAGA, make America great again, which most of MAGA wanted them to dump Israel. America can't be great again if it doesn't dump Israel. And Trump chose to be MAGA, not MAGA. And as a result, America, how long does the empire have? If it doesn't get rid of Israel, the world doesn't get rid of Israel. And the way we can do that is simple. We don't need to go to war. They want World War III. We simply need to expose them for who they are and sanction them. And don't let Netanyahu and these cowards that have IDF, shoot kids in the head. Do you think they wouldn't hesitate to shoot Charlie Kirk and kill him when they shoot kids in the head? They bomb children, bomb 33 of the 36 medical centers in Gaza. If you think they wouldn't shoot anyone and kill anyone to serve their interests, then you've sadly mistaken.
Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years?
Counting or not counting gang violence?
Great.
Shocking. I was very sad when I heard the news this morning. It really makes me angry, especially when we know enough what's going on, who's likely to be behind it. But regardless, as I said, condolences to Charlie's family. He was a great man. He stood for his beliefs. He may not always been right, but like most of us, I too was once pro-Israel. We discovered the fraud and the anger and what they've done to the world and what they're doing to the world. But we'll hear more about this, of course. The conspiracies will come out there, but someone shot him, and it's clearly not some random. It's a professional sniper, which suggests government agencies. And which government agency does these sort of things routinely? That would be Mossad. Let's go to a quick ad break. We'll be back with some more.
Report.
Jamie McIntyre reporting here live for the McIntyre Report, Australian National Review, ANR.news. Follow our 24-hour news headlines. We're talking there earlier about the sad news of Charlie Kirk, a political commentator from America, shot earlier today in Utah at a university rally. It appears the hallmarks of professional snipers. We'll hear more about that, but here at Australian National Review, we made the prediction that we'll find out in the future that it was intelligence agencies and most likely Mossad behind this. They'll try and martyr Charlie as pro-Israel and use that to garner sympathy for Israel. That's pretty much the pattern. I could be wrong. I don't have the evidence of that yet. But as I said before, if we're investigating any murder, you look who has motive, who has the most to gain. But that's just not enough. Who has capability? You have to have the capability. A lot of people like to say they're going to do something, but they have no way to do it. And who has a pattern of past behavior of doing these things? Who assassinates people around the world on pretty much a weekly basis? That would be Israel. So, of course, Israel has motive. It stands to gain the most. It has capability, by all means. Mossad, they control the CIA. They are the CIA. They are the deep state. And they have a pattern of past behavior. So they've got to be the prime suspect right up front. Don't be fooled that, it's like some transgender nutcase that's been made woke. They pulled out a random gun. It was clearly not the case. Let's see what else is happening in the news today.
October 7th, which, by the way, the IDF mysteriously elected to pull their troops away from the border on that day. October 7th, when mysteriously also the IDF chose mysteriously to ignore 2 warnings which came from Egypt that Hamas was planning an attack. They just said, you know what, we're going to ignore that. This is all facts, by the way. The also mysterious decision by the government to ignore a plan which they had intercepted, a plan from Hamas to take 200 hostages. They had nothing about that. All of this leading up to that moment in October 7th when, for some inexplicable reason, the IDF was just not able to get any one of their very many soldiers to intervene on that attack for 2 entire hours. Utterly implausible. Don't believe me? Just ask Charlie Kirk.
How did these guys not know this was taking place?
So I've been to Israel many times. The whole country's a fortress. When I first heard this story, I still have the same gut instinct that I did initially. I find this very hard to believe. I've been to that Gaza border. You cannot go 10 feet without running into a 19-year-old with an AR-15 or an automatic machine gun that's an IDF soldier, right? The whole country is surveilled. And so let me just kind of go through this. We don't talk about Israeli politics very often, and most Americans don't know this. The last 9 months, Israel was on the brink of civil war. It's not an exaggeration. This judicial stuff, there were hundreds of thousands of Israelis taking to the streets because Bibi Netanyahu was basically redefining the Israeli constitution. That's not an exaggeration, right? He said the judicial branch has too much power. There were protests planned this week against Netanyahu, where they anticipated tens of thousands of people to take to the streets. That's all gone, Patrick. Netanyahu now has an emergency government and a mandate to lead. I'm not willing to go so far that saying that Netanyahu knew or there was intelligence here. But I think some questions need to be asked. Was there a stand down order? Was there a stand down order? 6 hours? I don't believe it. Israel's the size of New Jersey. When I took a helicopter ride from Jerusalem to the Gaza border, it's 45 minutes. Wow. 6 hours. They're live streaming the killing of Jews. Did somebody in the government say stand down? That is a legitimate conspiracy question.
Questions that Bibi Netanyahu doesn't want to answer.
Is that what got Charlie Kirk killed? Is that why Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, had him dealt with? Well, clearly intelligence agencies have taken him out. This is a professional hit job. And as we showed before, this is what Netanyahu says, being all nice, etc. Charlie Kirk there was one of the first times he's really called out Israel. He's pro-Israel. He's a Zionist. He believes Israel is a biblical Israel, doesn't realize it's a fake state created in 1948. He was calling out pretty much directly Netanyahu. Now, Netanyahu, as we said this early, Charlie Kirk was murdered for speaking the truth and defending freedom. Yes, Netanyahu, he probably was, because you had him murdered for speaking just then what we seen, the truth and defending freedom. And of course, he was meant to come to Israel because anyone starts speaking out, like Elon Musk or any of them, oh, you now got to go for a trip to Netanyahu, or will be taken to Auschwitz, will be reprogrammed into standing with us, and why you must stand with us. They're always so desperate for friends. In other words, you be our friend, you keep staying on script and keep pushing Israeli propaganda, or we'll kill you. And is that what got Charlie Kirk killed? Was what we just saw. I'm a bet there's a fair chance it is. He was speaking out. Encouraged to him. But simply not necessary. What the lengths they will go to silence people, to shut people up, or to divide you. We are dealing with pure evil, and this is the best chance in humanity and civilization we've had to pile on and have humanity unite against this evil of Israel. And we can end them without going to war. They want war. We don't need to. Just sanction them. Expose them, call them out, sanction them, and sanction their supporters. If people stand with Israel, contact their employer to have them sacked and fired for lack of morals, for standing with those who bomb children to death, sniper children in the head, and even sniper Charlie Kirk. Sanction their businesses. We can all do more. Consumer activism, boycott Israeli products. Demand our governments oppose Israel, stop sending them weapons. In America, just Trump has to be accountable for this. Trump is the one that's supplying the serial murderer in Netanyahu with weapons to continue murdering people. Trump, America, allowed this to happen in the recent days.
Israel bombed Doha, right where America runs its largest airbase. Don't be fooled. No jet could cross those skies without U.S. approval. This wasn't Israel acting alone. It was a joint signal of power and betrayal. Every radar around Al Udeid Air Base would have tracked the attack. Washington's complicity is undeniable. By allowing this strike, the U.S. proved that Qatar's so-called ally status collapses the moment Israel demands protection. Qatar is now the 10th country hit by Israel since October 2023. From Gaza to Lebanon, from Syria to Iraq, Iran, Yemen, and Egypt, to international waters near Malta, the flotilla ship in Tunisia, and today, Doha. Netanyahu's doctrine erases all borders, expansion without restraint, violence without accountability. This is the blueprint of Greater Israel. Hamas leaders were in Doha, reviewing Donald Trump's latest ceasefire plan when Israel struck. This is the pattern. Dangle negotiations, keep them busy, then assassinate them mid-talks. Israel does not want peace, only impunity. Reports emerged that the delegation, headed by senior official Khalil al-Hayya, survived the Israeli strike in Doha. Sources told news outlets. But survival doesn't change the outcome. This was a blatant act of war, carried out with American cover. By green-lighting the Doha strike, Washington and Tel Aviv delivered one chilling message. Arab sovereignty exists only at Israel's convenience. No capital is safe, not even under America's shadow. What do you think this means for the region? Share your thoughts in the comments, and follow Map Narratives for more world-changing stories, one map at a time.
Can you believe this? You know, America is complicit. America is a colony of Israel. Now, Trump and them can't go, oh, we didn't authorize it. It is impossible to happen. They are aiding and abetting, and here's the sick pattern of Israel. They did it to Iran. They pretend and have Trump, let's go, Trump goes in as a Trojan horse, let's negotiate peace. So they've got the Iranian commanders in one location to discuss and finalize a peace deal that Trump puts to them, the good cop. Yeah, we'll agree to peace here. Can you agree to this? They get them in a location to do it, and then they assassinate them. Hamas in Doha. Now, let's remember, who funded and paid money to Qatar to have Hamas's head office open in Qatar? Israel did. Who started Hamas? Israel. Who funded them up to 2012? Israel. Who begged Qatar to fund them ever since? Israel. Who shuffled $1.4 billion in US dollar notes to them since? Israel. They create the terrorists to have an opposing opposition so they can fool dumbed down Westerners who watch fake news that's owned by fake Jews who print fake money out of fake people because they'll believe anything. And they lie. So they've got Hamas. Here's a peace deal. Trump said, agree to our peace deal. So Hamas gets together to finalize agreeing to a peace deal, which Israel never wants peace deal. They never care about the hostages. They've been bombing the hostages to death for the last 18 months, along with millions of Gazans. Millions of Gazans have been under bombs, 377,000 of them missing, 100,000 dead. Where's the other 277,000 are missing? Likely under the rubble, pretty dead, and starving the other 2.5 million of them, and forcing them to leave. So as soon as Hamas gets together to discuss it, they drop a bomb on a foreign country to try and wipe them out. It's like, how do you deal with these people? There's zero trust. Here, we're going to do a peace deal. Let's get together to discuss a peace deal. No, what they're secretly doing, there is no peace deal. They don't want peace. They're just using Trump as a moron or a Trojan horse. I tell them we're going to have peace and then get them together and bomb the shit out of them. Twice now. Who would trust them? No one can trust them. And should Iran wait for Israel to attack it again, or does China, Russia, and Iran have to step up for the world and go, this is a rogue, fake state. They're a dangerous nuclear-powered state, and they must be dealt with once and for all. Either regime change and get rid of Netanyahu, or there has to be forces go in and destroy Israel. And Israelis, I've told them a year ago, leave Israel. Flee while you can. The writing's on the wall. Israel is psychopathic. Netanyahu's a psychopath. And they want World War III and a biblical prophecy. And they're just begging to be wiped off the map. Now, we hope that we can get rid of Israel without war. Just sanction them to death and everyone pile on, getting educated and expose them and start sanctioning their supporters. So the few dumb slowest in the class still standing with Israel, still believe, oh, what about the hostages or Hamas is evil bullshit, still fall for the Israeli propaganda and don't know Israel's tricks and deception. They're still foolish, dumbed down people that swallow fake news and have become so fake they can't determine what's good or bad. And then enough people, Israel's losing support massively. So there's more can be done, but it's up to us to be educated, independent media. That's what we do.
You don't even need a single video clip or photograph to prove the moon landings were staged. All it takes is logic. Cold, simple logic. Let's start here today with 50 years of technological advancement, billions of dollars in funding, and rockets that are supposedly far more advanced than those of the 1960s. The farthest NASA can send an astronaut into space is about 1/1000th the distance to the moon. Let that sink in, 1,000th. Now think about what they're really claiming. In 1969, when NASA's computers combined had less power than the cell phone in your pocket, they supposedly launched men through radiation belts across hundreds of thousands of miles and landed them perfectly on the moon on their very first attempt. Then not only did they land, they took off again, reconnected in orbit, and flew safely back to Earth, all with a sliver of today's computing power. Does that sound like progress, or does it sound like a script? Because if that story were true, it would mean technology worked backwards. It would mean that the greatest achievement in human history happened during a time when calculators were a luxury, televisions had antennas, and rotary phones were the peak of communication. Since when does technology peak in the past, only to fail in the future? Has a car from 1969 ever been faster than a Formula One racer today? Has a typewriter ever outperformed a modern laptop? No. Progress doesn't move backwards. Unless, of course, it never happened in the first place. And that's the absurdity. We're told to worship the moon landing as fact, to believe in grainy black and white footage like it's sacred scripture. But honestly, the truth is obvious. If NASA can't repeat it now, if they openly admit they can't even go beyond low Earth orbit, then how could they possibly have done it half a century ago with, well, duct tape and tin foil? The answer is simple. They couldn't. They didn't. The moon landing wasn't mankind's greatest step. It was mankind's greatest lie. And people cling to it, defend it, almost like a religion. Because, you know, to admit it was faked would unravel everything else. It would prove that NASA's authority is a fraud. It would prove that the globe model is nothing more than a stage prop. So I'll leave you with this. If the moon landings were real, why can't they do it again today? Why is it that in the supposed golden age of technology, the impossible is somehow more impossible than it was in 1969?
The answer is staring us in the face. They never went, and the truth has been hidden above the flat, motionless earth.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? More and more people are coming out questioning all the lies now. If you question the lies about COVID-19, then you start questioning September 11th, the Iraq War, and we find out there's a pattern of history of lies. That's a whole different subject, the moon landing, but most young people no longer believe it for valid reasons because they can't do it again. 2026, NASA said they were sending people back to the moon, but that's put back 2027. As we know, it will never happen. We have to accept we're being lied to about many things, and we start needing to find the truth. Piers Morgan, Tucker Carlson.
Donald Trump decided to attack Iran. What did you feel about that?
I was concerned and remain concerned that this focus on Iran is not actually connected to our national security. How many Shiite attacks have there been in the United States in my lifetime? Let me do the math. 0. So don't tell me that the greatest threat we face is Iran. That's a lie. You're telling it on behalf of a foreign power. Maybe they feel the greatest threat they face is Iran. It's not the greatest threat we face.
Obviously, we'd like to see a regime change, at least I would, in Iran, just as I would like to see in Iraq.
It just makes me an American who's trying to think clearly about what our problems are. Iran is not even on the top 10 list. And so if the energy of the U.S. government is focused on a threat that's not the primary threat to us, it is by definition ignoring threats that are.
Well, interesting, isn't it? People are waking up rapidly against Israel and America fighting the wars. Will they wake up in time, and how time, and how time, and how time, and how time?
I need Western countries to hear me when I say this, okay? All the Western countries, United States, Europe, especially Europe, okay? I don't want to hear any whining about the Islamification of your country because of mass migration. As you aid and abet, or at best case scenario, just remain silent at what's happening in the Middle East because Israel wants to build their empire. Okay, the mass displacement that we've seen in the Middle East is the result of us going into countries, bombing countries, overthrowing, governments that Israel doesn't like. All of that stuff has led to mass migration of Muslims. You think they want to go to your stanky ass country? No, I think they would rather be in their homeland, but they can't live in their homeland because it's been bombed to smithereens. That's the reality of the situation. So if you don't want the Islamification of your country, how about you stop aiding and abetting Israel in their disgusting land grabs and empire building? How about that?
Yeah. Look, some people, of course, want to live in lovely European countries.
Look, Europe is awesome. I love Europe, but it makes me so angry that people are blind to what's happening, right? They think they're so high and mighty. They think they're so great. And it's like, oh my God, we're being invaded. No, you are aiding and abetting the destruction of these countries. Where do you think people are going to go? What do you think is happening with the Palestinian people right now?
So let me give you a quick example. So Israel's been agitating for a regime change in Iraq. They got us to do it, congratulations. And this is not speculation. This is all Israeli prime ministers, Netanyahu, Sharon, saying, we want America to attack Iraq. Iraq is our #1 enemy. Now they're saying Iran is our #1 enemy. We want you to attack Iran. And they have said this for different countries in the Middle East. And they've been trying to destabilize the Assad regime for a long time in Syria. Now the Assad regime was terrible and dictatorial, right? So it had plenty of its own problems. But they were looking to destabilize it so they can grab Western Syria. They destabilized it. They did grab Western Syria. They have Western Syria as we speak. But what was the consequence of that? It pushed that entire war and that destabilization pushed Syrians into many countries, other Middle Eastern countries, other European countries. My parents' hometown in Turkey was near the Syrian border. Now it is filled to the rim with Syrian refugees.
That's what happens. People get displaced. So when you see the displacement of endless numbers of people from various Middle Eastern countries, ask yourself, why is this happening? Because I guarantee you, people aren't just deciding they're gonna leave everything they've known in their homeland and invade your country. That's not what's actually happening. If you want that to stop, okay, whether you're in Europe or whether you're in the United States, stop voting in favor of politicians that put Israel up on a pedestal and put their own people down, put their own people second. Because if you're gonna do the bidding of Israel, you're gonna keep getting mass displacement of people in that region of the world. That's the reality of the situation. Israel never suffers the consequences. Everyone else does.